There is a man whose name has become synonymous with evil. A man so feared, they created a word to describe him: Machiavellian. When you hear that name, what comes to mind? Manipulation, betrayal, cold cruelty. But what if I told you that Niccolò Machiavelli was never a tyrant, that he never killed anyone, that he spent most of his life poor, exiled, and tortured, and that all he did was tell the truth? A truth so brutal, so naked, so dangerous, that 500 years later, the world is still afraid of it. Today, in 10 minutes, you will meet the man behind the myth. And in the end, you will have to decide, was he a monster or the only honest one in a room full of liars? Florence, 1469, the most powerful city in Italy, the cradle of the Renaissance, the center of the civilized world. And it is here that Niccolò Machiavelli is born. But Machiavelli's Florence is not a museum. It's an arena of gladiators dressed in silk, noble families plotting, bankers buying popes, assassinations in cathedrals, betrayals at banquets. Italy is fragmented into dozens of warring states, and all around, hungry giants: France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire. They all want a piece. It is in this cauldron of intrigue, violence, and beauty that Machiavelli grows up. And from an early age, he learns a lesson that defines his life. Pretty words save no one. Only real power matters. 1498. Machiavelli is 29 years old, and something extraordinary happens. He is appointed second chancellor of the Republic of Florence. Not because he is noble. His family has no money, no power, but he has something rarer: brutal intelligence, and the ability to see the world as it is, not as people pretend it is. For 14 years, Machiavelli serves the Republic. He negotiates with kings, commands diplomatic missions. He observes tyrants, popes, generals. And in every encounter, he does the same thing. He watches. He takes notes. He dissects. How Cesare Borgia conquers cities with promises and then crushes them with betrayal. How Pope Alexander VI buys loyalty with gold and fear. How the French invade because the Italians trust mercenaries instead of building their own armies. He sees the pattern, and the pattern is clear. Those who act win. Those who hesitate die. 1512. Everything falls apart. The Republic falls. The Medici return to power, and Machiavelli, who served against them, is accused of conspiracy. They arrest him. They torture him. Strabato, a torture where your arms are tied behind your back and you are hoisted by a rope. Your shoulders dislocate. The muscles tear. 6 times they do this to him. And he confesses nothing, because there is nothing to confess. Eventually, they release him. But his career is over. His public life destroyed. He is exiled to a small rural property, poor, forgotten. At 43, everything he worked for is gone. And it is here, at rock bottom, that he creates the most dangerous work in Western history. Every night, Machiavelli performs a ritual. He takes off his dirty work clothes. He puts on his old court garments, the only ones he has left. and he enters what he calls the court of the ancients. He reads the classics, Livy, Polybius, Thucydides, and he writes, feverishly. He is distilling 14 years of observation, decades of seeing power in action, of watching men rise and fall, and he is tired of lies. The books on politics at the time are all the same. They say the prince must be virtuous, just, pious, generous. And Machiavelli saw what happens to princes like that. They die. Or worse, they are betrayed by those who swore loyalty. So he writes something different, something no one dared to write, a survival manual for the real world. He calls it The Prince, and every page is a bombshell. What Machiavelli writes is so radical that it still causes discomfort today. He says, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Why? Because love is fickle, but fear is reliable. He says a prince does not need to have virtues. He needs to seem to have them, because people judge by appearances, not by the truth. He says sometimes cruelty, well used, is more merciful than kindness, ill applied, because a swift execution can prevent a civil war that kills thousands. And the most dangerous phrase of all, the ends justify the means. This isn't philosophy, it's surgery. He is cutting open the body of politics and showing the organs everyone pretends don't exist. And the world is not ready. The Prince is not published during Niccolò Machiavelli's lifetime. He dies in 1527, bitter and poor. But 5 years later, the book is printed, and it explodes like a grenade. The Catholic Church places it on the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the list of forbidden books. Intellectuals condemn it, philosophers attack it, the religious say it's the work of the devil. In England, they create a new word, Machiavellian. It means evil, unscrupulous, treacherous. Shakespeare uses Machiavel as a synonym for Satan himself in his plays. For centuries, to read Machiavelli publicly is to admit you are amoral. But in secret, kings read him, generals study him, politicians memorize him. Because even if they hate to admit it, they know he is right. But here's what few understand. Machiavelli wasn't teaching tyrants how to be cruel. They already knew how. He was teaching common people how to recognize tyrants. Think about it. Before Machiavelli, books said, kings are chosen by God, obey them. Machiavelli says, kings are men, and men act out of self-interest. Here is how. He ripped the mask off of power, and in doing so, he gave the people a tool, the ability to see through the lies. In previous videos on this channel, we explored Machiavelli's tactics, how to judge by actions, not words, how to identify gaslighting, how to use silence strategically. All these lessons come from a man who was called a demon for telling the truth. 500 years later, the world hasn't changed that much. Leaders still lie while smiling. Politicians still promise virtue while practicing betrayal. Corporations still talk about values while chasing profit. And they have all read Machiavelli. Henry Kissinger quoted him. Napoleon had the prince by his bedside. Stalin studied him. Silicon Valley CEOs distribute him to their executives. Why? Because Machiavelli didn't write about the ideal world. He wrote about the real world. And in the real world, those who understand the game win. Those who pretend the game doesn't exist lose. But here's the final twist. Machiavelli didn't want only the powerful to know the rules. He published, he exposed, he risked everything to reveal the secrets. Because he believed that an informed population is harder to deceive, and an exposed tyrant is easier to resist. So who really was Niccolò Machiavelli? He wasn't a prince, he wasn't a tyrant, he wasn't even rich. He was a public servant who loved his city, who tried to save it with intelligence when power was lacking. He was a father, a husband, a man who wrote funny letters to friends, who laughed, who loved theater, who, when tortured, betrayed no one. He was someone who saw the world fall apart and refused to lie about what he saw, even knowing the truth would make him hated. And maybe that's why they call him a monster. Not because he was cruel, but because he refused to pretend that cruelty didn't exist. He didn't invent human evil. He just had the courage to describe it. And for 500 years, we've been punishing the messenger instead of listening to the message. So now you know, Machiavelli was not the demon they painted him to be. He was the most honest teacher humanity ever had. A teacher who said, "I will show you how the world really works, and you decide what to do with it. You can use it to dominate, or you can use it to avoid being dominated. You can use it to manipulate, or you can use it to recognize manipulation. Knowledge is a knife, and every knife can heal or kill depending on who holds it. Machiavelli gave you the knife, and with it, the responsibility. The question now is not whether he was good or evil. The question is, what will you do with what you have learned?" If you've made it this far, you have met the real Machiavelli. Not the demon from the sermons, but the tortured man who refused to lie. And if this has changed something in you, leave a comment below. Verità effettuale, the effective truth, the words he used to describe his philosophy. Not the truth we want, the truth that is. This is the mission of the Human Codex, to unearth the truths that have been buried, to study the minds that changed the world, and to give you the tools to see beyond the masks. Machiavelli was the first brilliant mind in this playlist, but many others are waiting. Nietzsche, June, Schopenhauer, Sun Tzu, each with secrets that can transform how you see power, the mind, and life. Subscribe and join the fortress of minds that are not afraid of the naked truth. Go now, and may clarity be your weapon.